bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go!
EAGLES, Eagles.
And a good meeting Monday morning here on Birds 365. We're starting the week off right. John McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you. We're still in our respective studios in the state of New Jersey. The most important Philadelphia Eagle people are slightly south of here, down in Orlando, for the owners' meetings. Johnny Mack, after 3 straight days of college basketball, I'm ready to jump back into football. I need a break from college basketball, and no better way to get that than talk some Eagles football with you for the next 2 hours. Yes, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, Jeffrey Lurie, all down in Orlando for the owners' meetings this weekend, each and every single year. Kind of spurs not only conversation about the game and potential route changes and everything else, but player movement and what the teams have done so far to this point in free agency. You just told me that Sirianni and Lurie are going to talk tomorrow. Howie's going to talk sometime later on today after lunch, somewhere thereabouts. We going to get anything that is going to rock the Eagles world, or is this kind of a lull in the season and a lull for the organization? Because they've surely made changes, but they haven't torn it down to build it back up or anything else. They've done what they've needed to do this offseason. We going to get anything really juicy over the next 3 days from probably the 3 most important people to talk about the Eagles this offseason?
I don't know about juicy. You might get it's it's going to be interesting to hear Jeffrey talk, because he doesn't talk very often, sometimes only once a year, and this is it. Sometimes he gives a little bit of a talk before the season, sometimes not. So this could be the only time. And obviously, people want to know what went on when he was deciding to move forward with Nick Sirianni, but bring in Kellen Moore and ultimately Doug Nussmeier as new voices on the offensive side of the football. So that part will be interesting. As far as Howie and Nick, I mean, they've been doing this for a while now. Howie, a very long time. He's not going to give up too much, but, the Hassan Reddick thing is still out there. So he's obviously not going to hint or give up any leverage positioning. Nick Sirianni's already spoken to somebody from NFL media, either Pelissero or somebody.
No, it was Pelissero, yes.
Talking about Saquon Barkley. Our old friend Bob Gross paying attention. Cam Jurgens is the center, Bob, if you're listening. So he did let that up. You're the last one. So you might want to tip over to the Cam Jurgens is playing center discussion. And a little bit talking about the leadership of Nick missed the coach's photo again, 2nd straight year. That sets people off for some reason. 5 guys missed this year. He was one of them. He missed last year too. I'm 99% sure. So
what do you think that's about? Do you think he's just considers himself non-photogenic, just coincidence?
Actually, so the guys who missed, actually, I pulled it up. Tomlin missed it. Sean Payton missed it. McCarthy missed it. Nick missed it. Matt Eberflus missed it. My guess he was bending elbows with Matt Eberflus. If you want my honest opinion, that would be my guess. And they said, "Oh, we forgot the." That would be my guess, but that's just a pure.
So a late Sunday night, he was up watching the college basketball late game.
Yeah, he's buddies with. I saw Eberflus missed it as well, and they're buddies. So I'm assuming maybe they were at the bar watching some NCAA tournament action. Not that big of a deal, Eagles fans. Settle down. Not that.
That's a good conspiracy theory, but you're right. It isn't that big a deal. But. You're right. He did a couple of NFL media guys did get some quotes from Nick Sirianni. Maybe he knew that's why he felt the need to talk to Tom Pessalero was I ain't going to picture day, so maybe I better give this guy a little something the night before. Doubtful. I am interested.
Hey, but can I say real quick, Jody, Howie made it to the GM picture, and boy, Howie gets the Andy Reid spot, man. He's head of the class, right in the middle, right up front. So, a little respect for Howie Roseman.
Good for Howie. He certainly earned that and deserves that if that's the case. Did he go Hawaiian shirt for the picture? If he thinks he's Andy Reid front and center, you got to go Tommy Bahama, don't you?
I didn't pay that much attention to it. I'll pull it up in the break. I doubt he went Hawaiian shirt, though.
Doesn't get fashion tips from his old coach. Well, that would be just
blue shirt, some jeans, some sneakers. That's all. Nothing.
No attire to overanalyze. All right, fair enough. The Eagles actually did make a move yesterday, which is not going to rock or shock the world. But I thought it was interesting. They did sign Will Grier as a free agent. Now, I was a Will Grier fan coming out of West Virginia. I actually thought he had a chance to be a starting quarterback in the league. He was drafted further down, and I thought he was. I thought he was going to be drafted higher. He's bounced around to a couple teams, including 2 stops where Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys previously, and then last year, end of season, Herbert hurt. They got a little short on quarterbacks. They picked Will Grier up off the street to sign him for just the last couple of games for the Chargers. Surely didn't get any game action, but is a guy who's bounced around the league a couple times. I've always kind of liked this talent. Not that I'm saying that he's going to replace Jalen Hurts. That's not happening. Not suggesting he's going to beat out Kenny Pickett for the backup spot, but there'll be a competition. He'll push Pickett. That's a good thing. I got zero problems for this. If you really want to read into it, they don't think McKee's good enough. Why do you need a fourth quarterback? We got to get through camp. And there's a whole lot of drills that need to be done with quarterbacks and wide receivers and the like. I'll come up short of calling him a camp body, but I don't think this is a massive, major move for the Eagles. But an interesting just the same. Anytime you sign a quarterback, it's going to grab some attention. I kind of like the player. I'm not just dismissing this, that I can circle a day on the calendar right now. August 8th, that will be the day that he's going to actually be cut. Well, that's not even – I forgot about the new rules. You don't have to cut anybody.
You don't have to cut anybody, yeah.
Yeah, so whatever that day is, 2 weeks before the season starts, Will Grier, don't send laundry out for the day after because your day with the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be over. That's probably the way it's going to play, but – you got an opinion on Will Grier coming to camp for the Eagles as their third or fourth string QB?
Yeah, I think, the Eagles made it very clear behind the scenes that he's fourth string. They still like Tanner McKee. So I think this is, this is a Kevin O'Connell situation. What I mean by that is I think Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier really like the player, really think he has a future as a potential coach in this league. They know his system. As you mentioned, he was in Dallas. He was Chargers for a little bit, not a long time. But and if something were to happen, this is one of the first guys they call. But he's not even here to push Tanner McKee. I think he's here to he knows the system. He knows what they want to accomplish. And I'm talking about Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier. So you have sort of an extended player in the room you're comfortable with. He knows the concepts, and everybody can bounce stuff on him. And I think they think he's got a future as a coach, and they want to help him along that path. It's set. Jalen Hurts is obviously the starter. Kenny Pickett is obviously the backup. And then it comes down to the developmental player. And not to say that Tanner McKee could show up in August and just perform terribly and you go in a different direction. I don't think that's going to happen. The Eagles really like him. He's 23 years old. That's what you want with a developmental quarterback. Will at this stage is 28 going on 29. So that's not really a role for him. But I think he can help, and it doesn't hurt to have that fourth arm just to take some of the wear and tear off the guys are going to be throwing all year. So, I think Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier like him, and I think he'll be helpful sort of getting everybody up to speed in their concepts and what they like. And again, who knows? He might be a head coach 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road. And I think that's what's being groomed by Kellen Moore, at least in Doug Nussmeier.
No, I take the under bet on jobs that Kellen Moore gets as a head coach in the National Football League. It's good that Will Grier gets. That's kind of a tough fit. Now, you want to take the shot. You want to be nice to your guy. You think he's a smart dude. Have him in the room, quarterback room, help you out. More power to you. Yeah, I bet against Will Grier becoming an NFL head coach just because the odds are stacked.
Well, the odds are always stacked, and that's why I bring up O'Connell. It's interesting because they're both third-round picks, both couldn't play in the NFL, and O'Connell, pretty early went to – I'm pulling them up as we speak – went to New England, Detroit, the Jets, Miami, Jets, Chargers, back to the Jets, and then he started coaching in 2015, which was, 7 years out, and he became, at the time, the youngest head coach in the NFL. I'm not saying that you're right. The odds are against it, but we're talking about a third-round pick who, is probably not an NFL quarterback. He's already been Carolina, Dallas, Cincinnati, New England, Chargers, Eagles. 7 years would be 2026. I'm just saying that's the correlation. Now, the odds are against him. You're right. It doesn't mean because, a lot of people – there's only one youngest head coach at the time, and it was KOC. Now they're going younger and younger. But I see sort of the comp because I was told that Kellen and Doug think he has a really high football IQ. And I think they want to help him.
That's not a bad thing to have, even if he doesn't play in a regular season game or be on the roster for a regular season Eagle game. I think the only true practical application it will have, and for our Eagle fans and the guys we got here on the stream, I got to give them credit. They all seem like they are deep divers in the NFL draft, that they've got opinions on guys, and not just guys that are going to go at number 22 to the Eagles or whatever. We got some draft nicks on the stream. You can put away your Eagles 6th or 7th. Did they not have a 7th-round pick this year, John? I don't think they do. I think they've got all those.
No, not right now.
In the 5th and 6th. They don't have a 7th. Don't worry about that 6th-round pick or Howie trading back into the 7th round. They're not going to be drafting a quarterback. They've already got 4. They kind of like all 4. There's a position and a spot on the totem pole that is the Eagle quarterback room. Tonight, this year is not going to be a draft day quarterback in a day 3 position for the Eagles. I'll go ahead and make that prediction right now. The Will Grier signing, if they're going to have him in camp the entire time, which they do, as we just noted, there is no more cutting in camp. Everybody gets cut on one big day. Get that long list out. Get the Grim Reaper ready to roll. We're going to tell a lot of people they're not going to be on this football team, so I don't think they'll be drafting a quarterback. Undrafted? Yeah, maybe. But draft, actually use a pick on a guy to be the 5th quarterback for camp. Yeah, I don't see that happening. All right, Johnny Mac, the other thing that's going to happen, well, let me get quickly, we'll do Laurie before we punch up our first guest. He's going to be asked about Sirianni, why he kept Sirianni, what the thought process was behind it. We've done a great job of speculating on it on how Jeff likes to have someone to blame after a season goes awry, and they decided to fall on the coordinators this year, which I had no problem with. I don't think either coordinator did a very good job and could have paid for it with their job, and they did. They decided to keep Sirianni rather than go broom sweeping the whole room clean. Anything that we didn't speculate that we're going to find out that this was a motivating factor for Jeff Lurie as to why he kept Sirianni? I think we've thrown out 122 reasons as to why he went the way that he went. We miss out on anything?
I don't think so. I think, we have enough time where we've gotten to it all, I think. And, I questioned the move, and I was pretty critical of Jeffrey and how he handled it, and we'll see how it works out. Ultimately, the results matter. And you could argue in the past he wanted to go in some different directions, wasn't able to, and it kind of worked out better, most likely. If you think about Adam Gase turning into Doug Peterson, if you think about
Ben McAdoo,
Josh McDaniels, Ben McDaniel, Ben McAdoo. Well, it was same year as Adam Gase. It was Gase first, then McAdoo. Some people argue Tom Coughlin was third. I don't necessarily believe that. And then they finally got to Doug Peterson. In the Nick Sirianni year, they had Kellen Moore. There wasn't a lot of talk around him potentially getting the job, but they interviewed him. Josh McDaniels was recommended. That's a feather in Jeffrey's cap, because he said, I don't want to go that way.
Not going there.
I'm going to keep interviewing people. Ultimately gets to Nick Sirianni. Now, at the time when they're going to the Super Bowl, that looked phenomenal. Now there's certain people that say, "Oh, you terrible job." I think if you're being fair, he's been a very good head coach. But look, you rarely see a collapse like we saw last season. So, it's kind of uncharted territory in a lot of ways, Jody. I mean, the record, it's laughable. If you just look at Nick Sirianni's record and you wake somebody up from a coma and they say, hey, they were thinking about firing this guy after last season, you look like a lunatic. But you just boil it down to that collapse, and seemingly, we had Randy Mueller on, and he made he described it as your job as a coach is to fix things, and they couldn't fix anything, Jody, anything. And that sort of, I hadn't thought of that when I advocated for Nick Sirianni coming back. And Randy's a former executive, so he's got a lot of experience with these things. And, that was really eye-opening to me, because I said, you know what? He's right. They couldn't fix a damn thing. And so which is it? It's a difficult decision.
It is.
And I mean, the record to me, God, it's hard to fire a coach with that record. But boy, he didn't fix anything.
Jeffrey trying to thread the needle here, and we'll see what it works with Sirianni. One last quick walk down memory lane, and hopefully our first guest will be ready to go. The Nick Sirianni hiring time, you were covering them day in and day out, knew all the rumors and the like. We threw out a couple of names. One I did want to get your take on, because I don't remember how close the Eagles were to potentially sign. I know they interviewed with him and kind of liked him. How much of a bullet did they dodge with Brandon Staley? If he had said, I want to be the Philadelphia Eagles head coach, would the Eagles have hired him before ever getting to Nick Sirianni in an interview?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he did turn down an interview, and they certainly wanted to interview him. But just knowing Jeffrey Lurie's, the same thing with Robert Saleh. I say the same thing. Robert actually,
defense. I got
yeah. So I don't think he would have went that way. Arthur Smith was the bullet that needed dodging if they were able to get in with him, and he was the hot candidate at the time offensively. And it wasn't terrible in Atlanta, but I don't think anybody was saying, "Oh, what a great hire" either. So those three guys were the hot candidates at the time: Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh, Brandon Staley. They wanted to interview all of them, but they got started late. Staley's the one who said nope. The other two actually, as professionalism said, all right, we'll talk, but they were already way down the road with their, in the case of Saleh, the Jets, and Smith, the Falcons, that the Eagles weren't really in the mix for any of them, any of those three.
And that's how Nick Sirianni got the head coaching job. So that's where we are today. Nick Sirianni will be talking, Jeff Lurie, or Howie will be talking today. Nick Sirianni and Jeff Lurie tomorrow will be talking with our good buddy, Brandon Lee Gouton. I see him in the green room. He's ready to rock and roll. I think he's got an Eagles hat on. He's got some kind of hat. We'll find out for sure exactly which lid he's donning today.
He's subjective.
You don't think that's an Eagle hat? What's that look like for you?
I don't know.
We got him to do a great thing. Well, there's only one way to find out. Take a break, come back, and punch up BLG. Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green Nation next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Yeah, you got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. We have no hats on. Brandon Lee Gouton does have a hat on. Is that an eagle? Is that a bird there, right there?
It's the BGN eagle. So
all right,
my own
that works.
Yes, self-promotion. Always
yeah.
Very good.
I said I'd wear a Birds 365
of course,
hat, but I will not wear a Philadelphia Eagles hat.
Now, do you have to pay royalties to the Eagles for that, or just, hey, it's a bird? The Eagles were around long before the Philadelphia Eagles were around. We can use any eagle we want. Is there any trademark stuff going on there?
That's above my pay grade, but as far as I know, I think it's all kosher.
Very good answer, Brandon Lee. Very good answer. All right, now we need that many more very good answers. I asked this of John first question today, so I'll ask it of you as well. Between Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, Jeff Lurie, all expected to speak in the next 24, 48 hours. Anybody going to drop a bomb on us that we're not seeing coming, that Jeffrey Lurie is going to admit that he asked Nick Sirianni to make all his sporting wagers for him and puts money into fund if need to be, or that Howie Roseman knew that Jason Kelsey was retiring in like October and just never told anybody? We going to get anything really juicy out of these guys over the next 2 days?
I think we'll get something maybe mildly interesting. I'm just trying to think back to even last year, and I'm off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anything that was so revelatory, but I'm remiss in forgetting something. But no. And then the other thing is that, obviously could come out of this week is a personnel move or two, as we've seen in the past. Sometimes the owners meeting kind of rekindles some of the free agent discussions or trades are going on, whatnot. So we could see a roster move or two.
Yeah, Hassan Reddick would be the splashiest one. The Eagles obviously moved back the $1 million payment to April 1st. Where are we now? March 25th. So, there's some sense of urgency. Not that the Eagles care all that much about spending $1 million. Jeffrey Lurie has proven time and time again he'll go above and beyond if it's best for the team. But BLG's thoughts, yes or no? Hassan Reddick, a Philadelphia Eagle or not? And we'll do it both April 1st by April 1st and just in general.
I think for me, if you're asking me, should they keep him? I think they should find a way to do that. But in terms of what seems to be the writing on the wall between, Bryce Huff and making more money than Hassan Reddick now, and Hassan Reddick's desires, I think the Eagles would be best to play hardball a bit with Hassan Reddick and try to make him come back on the final year of his deal or work something out. But ultimately, I do think there's a decent chance that he gets traded at this point, now that Bryce Huff's definitely on this team. Josh Sweat is definitely back this year. Reddick does seem to be the odd man out, and that's tough because it's premium position, and I feel like you're just getting worse there depending on what you get back in return for him. I would think before the draft, I guess, maybe is what ultimately you're looking at, because at that point, what does a 2025 pick do for you in return for Hassan Reddick? So I would have to think within the next month.
And the thing that is the way things have shook out with Reddick, and this has been completely surprising to me, that the league doesn't value. I value Hassan Reddick a lot. I'm not sure how much the Eagles do. I'm not sure how much the rest of the NFL does. Maybe I have a higher opinion of Hassan Reddick than anybody else, but right now the Eagles don't have to do anything, because what big cap play is left out there? Justin Simmons is probably it. They're under the cap. They're well under the cap. They got a couple of contracts they haven't reported yet, so it's going to shrink, but they're in one of the best cap positions in the league. The whole reason for moving Hassan Reddick was we can't take a $21 million hit this year. Yeah, they can. They've already put their roster together, and Hassan's $21 million is still counting against it. So I don't think the Eagles are as forced to do it as we may have thought 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. But then the same thing goes for Reddick, too. If he went out there and shopped and there's absolutely nothing in a trade, did both the Eagles and the Reddick camp overvalue what Hassan Reddick is actually worth on the open market?
I think, the Brian Burns trade was revealing in terms of what the market was going to be around for Hassan Reddick. And it's just not something that I feel like you have to leap at and be like, honestly, in general, a lot of these trades we've seen this offseason, the returns for them for players have been, for the most part, like relatively meager. Yep. So I just don't get why there would be a rush to trade him. And to your point, Jody, it's like they're all on the roster right now. It's not like it can't possibly happen. And I know there's attitudes and egos and whatnot to consider there. But again, I think that's at a point where, and Eagles typically don't do this, but I feel like sometimes there's a time and place to kind of play hardball a little bit and make things a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that would be for the greater good ultimately.
Yeah, in a different position, but L'Jarius Sneed as well. He goes, and because of the contract, the value in draft compensation isn't as much as it should be. So, similar thing in theory, for Hassan Reddick, and we all know how he's hanging on for dear life for that second round pick. I don't think it's coming, BLG. So it's going to be interesting. But I don't think the Eagles, from the Eagles' standpoint, they don't want Reddick to play on the last year of his deal because of the cap hit, even though, as you said, they're under the cap. It shouldn't matter, but they see that $21 million cap hit for whatever reason. They don't want to do business that way. So there is a little bit of sense of urgency. And I don't know how you bring Hassan Reddick back and pay him less than Bryce Huff. I don't know how you can do that. So what you can do is maybe convince him to come back at $18 million and rework a deal for 1 year, give him the guaranteed money up front, get the cap number down with some voidable years. That's how we work, right?
Right. But let me ask you about that, John. That to me would be counterproductive. Why would you do that? Because you're only adding a cost at some point down the road. You're going to add voidable years, and at some point it's going to be dead cap money. If you can afford to pay him 21 now, have a $21 million cap hit, isn't that advantageous? Because down the road, you're not going to pay any charges. You're not going to have like interest payments on your cap. If you're not in desperate need of it, isn't it better to get it all over and done with right now than push it out over time?
Yeah, well, no, because he's already got void years. So he's got void years.
So you want to give him even more void years to make the dead cap hit at some point?
No, but what I'm saying is you already have the placeholder of the void. So I'm pulling up his contract real quick. So he's got 25, 26, and 27 as void years on his current contract. So you already have those dummy years in place. So you just kind of, it's bookkeeping, and essentially that's the way the Eagles do business. But what they can't do is bring him back and say, all right, you got to pay for $15 million a year. And Bryce, and by the way, I think Bryce Huff is a great signing. I think he's their best free agent signing. It's all about evaluation. But that's what you're trying to do in free agency. That's what I think you should be trying to do, BLG, is find a young ascending player who's got more than he's shown in the past. Not what he's done in the past, but he's going to do more in the future. That's the trick. I think that's what they may have gotten with Bryce Huff. We'll see how it plays out. But right now you can't pay Hassan Reddick less than Bryce Huff. You can't.
Right. Yeah. It feels a little like you're almost looking for the next Hassan Reddick. And it's just like, well, you have the real thing here. Like this, okay. Like the best case scenario for Bryce Huff is he becomes, I think, like pretty much what we've seen out of Hassan Reddick the past 2 years. Like that's a really, really great scenario if that comes to pass. And there's reason to be optimistic that like can happen. That's the ceiling that might play out, but it's not a guarantee. Like that's the top end outcome. So that's the part that's frustrating, I think, a little bit too, where it's like, oh man, like what if Bryce Huff can hit his ceiling? It's like he'll look like Hassan Reddick. Okay. You mean like the guy with the fourth most sacks in the NFL?
That's fair.
Yeah.
And Hassan had 2 double-digit sack years leading into the contract when he got the Eagles. Bryce Hufford's only had 1. I get it. The salary cap's gone up. The price of poker has gone up, but they're projecting more with Bryce Huff than they did with Hassan Reddick before Hassan has had these 2 outstanding years here in Philadelphia. I threw his name out earlier. Maybe you responded with his name. Justin Simmons. I get it. He's 30 years old, and maybe more so this season, like with Hassan Reddick, you drag that 3 number into the conversation, and someone's 30 years old, and red flags go off all over the place. Oh, you can't play him. You can't go long day. You can't give him double-digit $1 million. For some reason, the age of 30 now, you're destined to be falling off a cliff. I don't buy it. He was damn good again last year. I know we just went through watching James Bradbury come back to the pack really quickly, really badly, but I'm not living in fear. I would love to see them get this guy. We thought that it was a natural fit when he got released because he played for the new DC out there in Denver. It seems like it's very slow moving, that I'm not even hearing any good juicy rumors as to Justin Simmons. I'm guessing that his ass number is still pretty big, even though he got released after free agency started. What are the chances that Justin Simmons becomes a Philadelphia Eagle over the next week to 10 days?
Yeah, James Bradbury, who's still on the roster, by the way, still here. for now, at least. We'll see how that goes. But on Justin Simmons, yeah, I mean, back when he was released, I mean, it just seemed like such a no-brainer that he could end up in Philadelphia, especially because when the Eagles hired Vic Fangio earlier this year, I mean, I think pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Simmons is the most positive things to say about him, which is relevant too in the context of other players not necessarily being
Miami.
Thrilled about him or happy about him on the opposite side leaving Miami. So I thought that was noteworthy, and it just makes a lot of sense to me in that in a perfect world. And obviously I don't know exactly what they've promised Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It seems like he wants to play safety, but in a perfect world, I mean, you can move him into the slot. You have Justin Simmons and Reed Blankenship / you still have Sidney Brown coming back from injury. And I think that's a really good secondary outlook all of a sudden. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to do it. I think they're probably just at a spot where, you're probably waiting out his market a little bit, waiting for that price tag to come down. But if there's an opportunity to strike, and I think you could probably maybe, finagle that on a 1-year deal. I think that makes a lot of sense.
How much is too much in your mind, BLG, when it comes to positions? And I'll go back to Reddick as well and Simmons, but you just listed off the names. It's kind of roster building as a science, right? And how we talked about getting Nolan Smith involved. So if you have all three, if you have Reddick and Huff and Sweat and BG and Nolan Smith, how much is too much? Same thing at safety. You bring up the young players. I don't know where you are with Reed Blankenship. He seemed to be a decent prospect. I know some people are like, Reed, nothing. I thought he played pretty well for the most part. A little too injury prone. You'd like to see him stay on the field. Sidney Brown showed tremendous upside, I think, even playing out of position for the most part. If you're bringing in CJ and Justin Simmons, does that stunt development of good young players? Can there be too much at positions in the NFL?
Yeah, I think that's fair to consider, in your evaluation there. But I just think, the talent, and we've seen Justin Simmons' playmaking ability. I think that's tough and it's, obviously the obvious fit with Vic Fangio. I think that just makes it more of a unique situation there. I still am high on Reed Blankenship. I think people have been a little bit too tough on him. You talk about struggled down the stretch last year. I think part of that was he did get banged up a bit, and I don't know if he was ever fully healthy. And then also the whole defense fell apart. Almost everyone played terribly. So at least he kind of showed some promise earlier in the year, and he had a great training camp and everything. So I still feel bullish on Reed Blankenship. But, I don't think it's to the point where you have to, necessarily definitely commit to him playing 100% of the snaps as much as you can afford a rotation in there. And then the Sidney Brown thing, obviously the Eagles have a better sense of that than any of us do, I would think. But, that was a significant injury very late in the season. So I just don't want to be counting on that.
Yeah, I think Sidney Brown is in the background. He may be in the foreground by 2025, but for 2024, I think you have to put him in the background and say anything we get from him is icing on the cake. Here's what it would come down to me with signing Justin Simmons. Are you okay with making Chauncey Gardner-Johnson your slot corner? If you are, then you go get Justin Simmons. If you're not, that you sign CJ and he's our safety in a pinch with injuries like we suffered through last year, we know we can move him in there and he can fill the void for whatever period of time that is. Well, then no, you don't sign Justin Simmons. If you look at CJ as an unquestioned safety, then you don't do it. But if you don't, if you say, yeah, I could see him taking more snaps at slot corner than safety, go the hell out and get Justin Simmons. I think it's a pretty easy read.
Yeah, I think you can mix and match there a bit. I don't think you have to fully commit to CJ being your nickel cornerback the whole time, but it certainly obviously is something you can do. Now, again, it comes down to what he envisions his role to be and everything too.
Which, by the way, CJ said at his reintroductory press conference, "I'm a safety. I'm one of the best young safeties." Yeah.
So that's that.
That does kind of rain on my get.
And don't forget, you got Tyler Hall.
That's true.
Tyler Hall of the, I'd like to call them draft proofing signings. PJ Mustipher, Paris Campbell, Tyler Hall. What is the most exciting one for Brandon Lee Gouton?
I would say Tyler Hall, in part
Really?
because they had such a musical chairs of options there at slot cornerback last year that they need to figure that out. And I don't know that Tyler Hall, is going to come in here and be an excellent starter, but at the very least, I think you're hoping he can be like a better version of Josiah Scott, who when the Eagles had to play in the past when Avonte Maddox got hurt, would be a total liability, and defenses would clearly just go at that guy. So maybe at the very least, you're bringing in a guy who can kind of just give you a little bit more stability there, and I think that has value.
Speaking of slot corner, I know you text often with Roger Goodell. Could you hit him up this week and say, what the hell with Isaiah Rodgers? At some point, we'd like to know, is he going to be a Philadelphia Eagle this year or not? He can reapply, but the NFL can drag its feet for as long as the hell they want. Is Isaiah Rodgers going to get cleared to get back? Not get back for the first time, get into Eagle Green?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've all just kind of been assuming that, right? Like he'll definitely just get reinstated here.
I don't know. March Madness is going on. It's easy to hit that button, BLG, and place a little bet on UConn.
That's true. I'm looking back at last year. Calvin Ridley was reinstated like early March, and now we're in late March here.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know what the timeline is on that, but you would think the Eagles, I'm sure, would hope to have that answer like before the draft, because that's pretty relevant. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. I do expect him back, but
Right.
you never know when it comes to personal conduct issues, because I make light of it, but it's possible. You got to do all the right things to be back.
Yep.
But certainly the Eagles have, obviously they signed him for a reason, and they thought he might be back. It's interesting to me because he played. I've seen a number of people say because he played outside in Indianapolis, well, he can't play in the slot. I'm like, well, he played outside in Indianapolis because they had Kenny Moore, who's one of the best slot cornerbacks in football. And if you look at him from a stature standpoint, he probably better suits himself in the slot. You think if they do get him back, you think he will be in the mix in the slot, or they look at him outside?
I think both. I honestly think we'll see him in both, especially if they're not feeling great about their nickel options there. Relatively speaking, he had success on the outside that I don't think they can totally just dismiss that. But yes, I do agree that his profile kind of lends to the slot, and obviously they don't have a surefire option there as it currently stands. So I actually do think we will see him in both spots.
BLG, I myself am a little confused with how I look at the next topic I want to touch on with you, because John and I all the time talk about the fact that the NFL does whatever the hell it wants, whenever the hell it wants, because they can. They have such revenue coming in and ratings off the charts or whatever. They're not really ever put into position to have to do anything. They just say, hey, take it or leave it. What are you going to do? Walk away? So when they do make changes, I have to give them credit for at least saying, yeah, we could look at this. We could actually improve our game. We could do something, because it's not necessitated by the interest that they generate from fans. This whole new kickoff thing, I read a story or two about it every single day, and how it's going to be implemented, and how it's going to work, and what they borrowed from the USFL and the XFL and whatever other L they needed to come up with a new kickoff rule. And I'm just confused. I don't get it. I don't see in my football mind's eye how it's going to play off. Is this something we should be giving the NFL credit for at least being open-minded to try and add a different element to their game? Is it something we should be questioning? Because what the hell are you talking about? You kick off from the third, but it's got to hit the landing area, and you got to catch it. And it seems to me like you need to take a master class to understand how kickoffs are going to go in the NFL. What's your take on, and it's going to be discussed at length and maybe even implemented this week at the owners' meeting, what's your overall take on changing kickoffs in the NFL?
Yeah, I'm seeing from Jonathan Jones here that there's optimism that there's enough votes to potentially pass that for the modified kickoff. So and that just came out, so we'll see how that goes. But in general, I'm pretty pro experimenting, especially to me, the precedent that was set was the ridiculous, Sean Payton pass interference is now challengeable kind of thing that the NFL made basically just to
Oh,
placate
that
him.
was awful.
Well, it's like if we can do that, we
yeah.
can do anything. We can try anything for a year, and if it's terrible, it stinks, then just get rid of it the next year. That's fine. So that's kind of my general operating procedure at this point. I did like watching that kind of kickoff in the XFL. I thought there were some exciting results off of that, at least relative to the much neutered today's version of the kickoff. So I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, BLG, that there's some, because I saw John Bossel. He's the one who's going to be, I guess, introducing it or whatever to the owners, explaining it. And he was saying there's some hesitancy yesterday, I believe. So I'm glad to see things are trending in a positive direction. They got to do something. I mean, it was ridiculous. It's just, it's a waste of 10 seconds. And then you just start at the 25-yard line. You bring one of the most exciting plays back in the game. I'm with you. It looked pretty good in the XFL. You're trying to limit the those explosive hits by putting the players closer together, so it makes some sense from a safety standpoint. I'm all for the new kickoff. The hip drop tackle, no, stop. What? I can't. Please help me. I can't figure this out. The players hate it. Everybody hates it. It's going to be so tough for the officials who just get lambasted anyway. And the NFL's like, nope, got to do it. Got to do it. Troy Benson's out there, an ex-player. Boy, is he sold out, by the way. Sorry, ex-Eagle. Why?
It's not a real thing to me. Like it's not we use that name for it. You can.
Well, they made it up. They just made it up.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, it looks bad when you see it or whatever. There's been plays where players get hurt. Mark Andrews last year, but I don't think the player is doing anything illegal or dirty. It's just kind of an unfortunate situation, and that's football. And I don't get it. I really don't get how it's a thing.
And the one thing that they kind of slyly snuck out there this weekend, or maybe it was even the end of last week, fear not fans who think they're going to be flag after flag after flag after flag. It isn't something that is always going to be called on the field by a ref. But, oh, my God, when we watch those tapes after the fact, if we see a hip drop tackle, the fines are coming. That this is actually – that's why the players are pissed off about this, because they realize that's going to be the case. All right, I might not get a flag, but you're taking $14,000 out of my paycheck this week because I pulled a guy down, in your opinion, illegally? That's not as obnoxious to the actual playing of the game. But again, you're going to get players bitching about this every single week because they're just going to go 14,000 for you and 25 the percentage of the cap, and they're going to be throwing fines all over the place. That's why they comped it to the use of helmet thing, because that always lends itself more to a fine than an actual flag. The refs almost never call that, but they throw out fines for it every single week. That's got to be bad for the game.
I got to tell you, I hope you're right, Jody, that they never call it. I know the players are going to be right.
I won't say never.
But I know
I'll say less frequently than some people like Jody McDonald are worried about.
I hope you're right, and the players certainly are going to be upset about being fined, but I hope you're right, because that's 15 yards, and you're going to affect games, and people are going to be incensed when they see a poor defensive back trying to take down. You bring up Mark Andrews, BLG. It's usually that 185-pound defensive back trying to pull down this powerful tight end down the field. Yes, it's a dangerous sport. I go back to Kirby Joseph. Remember Kirby Joseph at the end of last season? He tore T.J. Hawkinson's ACL and MCL with a low hit because he can't go high.
I was going to say, what's the new teaching point?
And then 2 weeks later, almost the exact same play, Kirby Joseph tore the ACL and the MCL, exact same injury of Tyler Higbee. The unintended consequences of what they're trying to do, and boy, it makes no sense to me other than it's a dangerous sport.
I think it's just so subjective to really, it's not clear to me. I think it's very subjective and it's very unintentional. It's just going to happen because, like you said, you're just trying to take someone down. It's not legal. You're just legally trying to take someone down, and it might happen, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
PLG, I know on your site you guys have fun like every other site with mock drafts. We're almost a month within the draft of actually taking place. We know what pick the Eagles have, but a whole bunch has got to happen before we get to number 22 when the Eagles pick. John and I talk a lot about draft proofing their roster and free agent signings and the like. A month out, what do you think Howie Roseman is looking at? What do you think he's targeting? Of course, it's going to be draft board, stay the course, take the guy in place, but we all look at it as positional needs, futures, and the like. What's your general read a month out on the Eagles and what they want to do the first 2 days of the draft?
Well, I think knowing Howie Roseman and how he wants to
but we
invest
don't
in
know Howie Roseman. He gave a running back
He's
over
signing
$10
running
million.
backs.
It's
Yeah.
the new Howie Roseman.
And I still think you look at a guy's draft history when it comes to the trenches, and I still think there's an overwhelming case there that he likes to do that. And I also think you look at the talent of this year's draft class, and I think that kind of matches up specifically on the offensive line. And I think that is ultimately kind of going to be where they end up going. I think and just looking at how they obviously have done it with other positions, but specifically, Cam Jurgens to ultimately replace Jason Kelsey, and then obviously Landon Dickerson before that. I think, and Andre Dillard in the past with Jason Peters and whatnot, they have this track record of kind of drafting the successor on the offensive line. And by the way, if they had to play a game today, who is the backup tackle on the left?
Fred Johnson,
right,
baby.
You're looking at Fred Johnson, right? I think they like Fred Johnson, but I think they would also like to get a more long-term option in there. So I think offensive tackle, ideally one who could potentially, maybe play right guard to fill in there, and then eventually take over for Lane Johnson on the right side. I mean, I think that's ultimately what they would love to see.
Yeah, I'm with you. At Brandon Gouton, I've said the same thing, and mainly because BLG, there's a shitload of tackles available in that first round, and they're going to start dropping because everybody's not going to take a tackle, and the Eagles are going to say, "This is great value."
Mm-hmm.
Now, Howie might also target, a corner and go up and get them, so he might have somebody in mind. But if they stay put, I think it's going to be offensive tackle. I'm with you. At Brandon Gouton, as I mentioned, follow him on X and Twitter. Does a tremendous job at Bleeding Green, all the podcasts with our buddy Jimmy Kempski. So if you were down there and you got past Kempski's sausage sandwich at the breakfast tomorrow to get the first question, what would your first question be to Nick Sirianni at the coach's breakfast? The AFC just wrapped up NFC tomorrow. Give me your first question to Nick Sirianni. It's about weaponizing Saquon Barkley. It's about his interacting with Kellen Moore. What could it be?
Yeah. I wouldn't ask him about Hassan Reddick. It's more of a Howie question for sure. I think it has to be about Saquon. That's the big story. What's the vision for him? Do you plan, to get him involved more as a pass catcher? Because we saw from last year, like in training camp, it seemed like DeAndre Swift was this big part of the passing game in training camp. And then,
by the way, sorry, I got to follow up. Sorry, Jody. I asked Dave Zangaro this last week, and I want to ask you because you've been around a long time covering this team. You've been at tons of practices.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I hear about weaponizing in the spring, I just roll my eyes. I think I remember Darren Sproles. Remember 21 Pony with Darren Sproles and Donnell Pump? How do you stop it, BLG, in the spring? How do you stop it in T-shirts? DeAndre Swift last year. What a great pass catcher. It never comes to fruition.
Exactly.
Never comes to fruition. I'm not even blaming Saquon, but when I hear weaponize, I'm like, it's not going to happen.
That's
it's
something
just not going to happen.
You see with all the fantasy football headlines, and then that section of the internet gets really excited about something. I remember this happening with Tony Pollard too in Dallas. They're like, "Oh, we're going to put Tony Pollard in the slot," and I mean, maybe you see that like a handful of times in a season.
Yeah, the only guy who ever gets into the slot and does anything out of the backfield is McCaffrey. He's it. That's one. There's one in the league that actually works for. And oh, by the way, if I had my first question for Nick Sirianni, I'd combine both Brandon Lee Gowton and John Mullen. How are you going to actually exist without the weaponization of Quez Watkins? That would be because we surely heard that from Nick Sirianni this year. And Quez still available. Shockingly, Quez has not signed.
Still available. Maybe he'll get a nibble down at the owners' meetings. Maybe.
Yeah, not happening anytime soon. BLG, a pleasure. We love the give the hat one more look, pull it down so we can see it again. That would be the Bleeding Green Nation Eagle right there. Make sure you check out his website on the daily for the owners' meetings and to the draft. Does a great job with the draft. And you'll wise up between now and the draft. They're going to take a cornerback with that first pick. Not going to be offensive lineman, but just a
they better go up,
or
they're going to be stuck with somebody.
Stuck with who? Cooper DeJean? I'll take him now.
I like him.
And get him at 21. They'll be a very good corner available.
What about Rakestraw? How do you pronounce his name? Is it Rakestraw or Rakestraw?
Some have him in the top 20, other have him in the second round. So if they take him at 22, I won't be happy. But I do think there's at least 4 corners that are worthy of being.
Christian Parker out watching him at Mizzou's Pro Day.
That's right.
Okay. I'd rather have the Alabama kid, the Clemson kid, Cooper DeJean. I think one of those 3 are probably, or the kid from whom I forget, Toledo. Why can't I think of
Quinyon Mitchell? Yeah,
Quinyon Mitchell.
He's not making it.
Yeah, he'll be gone, but he'll be one of those. So one of the top 4 cornerbacks will be there when the Eagles pick. We shall see. We only got a month to figure this shit out. So BLG, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon.
That is Brandon Lee Gowton with his Bleeding Green Nation Eagle hat on. He's not fronting. He's just not going to tell you he's rooting for the Eagles.
I'm still waiting for my Birds 365 hats.
You and I bought. Are there such a thing as a Birds 365?
I don't know.
I know there are some T-shirts. Maybe you got a golf shirt or whatever, but I don't even know if there's a hat. All right, we'll come back hatless. We do have one more guest to go today. That would be our guy, Mark Farzetta. We haven't had Farzy on in over a month. You get him before us. You're going to get him with us. Mark Farzetta joins us in about 20 minutes from now. We'll come back. A couple more things I want to run by John. But before I do that, I would like to help save some money for you guys out there. If you would like to do just that with your car insurance, here's how. Birds fans, your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Call one of their 2 managing general partners. That would be either Jim or Fran, and tell them you'd like to save and you are a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm inspector at JAKIB. At JAKIB we offer three major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give JAKIB a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Got to give the nod to one of our streamers here, Johnny Mac from Daz. Daz is a regular here on the stream. He's giving us insights all the time about our commercial that we just did. I'm going to tell him I've been in 10 accidents and have 4 tickets of going over 100 miles per hour. And Jody said I get 40% off. I think what the commercial says is you can get 40% off. I don't think it says you're guaranteed to get 40% off. Because if you've had 10 accidents and 4 tickets at over 100 miles an hour, I'm going to go out, and I love Jim and Fran, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to save you 40%. So you have to pay strict attention to when that commercial airs. They will give it their best effort. They will do everything that they can for you. But depending on how bad that driving record is, they just might.
Yeah,
not
10
be able to.
accidents and 4 tickets for going over 100. Yeah, I don't think.
You don't think that 40% savings is in the offing, do you, John?
You're 40% discount as you're still on the stream.
Yeah,
that's your 40%.
On the stream and allowed to even walk over a road rather than drive over a road. That's a general upset. All right, Johnny Mac, here's what I want to talk about with you before we get Mark Farzetta up here. Farz is going to join us coming up about 15 minutes from now. A specific word in football which at times befuddles me because some people talk longingly about it and others want to tell you why you can't actually have it in the National Football League, and that's versatility. Because
I thought you're going to say hip drop tackle.
No,
go ahead.
That works too. Exactly right. No, what I'm talking about is versatility because everybody likes it. Everybody thinks about it. Everybody wants it if they can have it and thinks it makes their roster better because you can do different things and the like. But then you have actual examples of it where you go, yeah, that was probably a pretty bad idea. And the 2 positions that I'm talking about, number one, absolutely evidenced by the Philadelphia Eagles last year is slot corner. They tried a bunch of guys at slot corner who their number one position wasn't necessarily slot corner. But they had injuries. Maddox goes down. Now we got to just try and make it up on the fly. They didn't have a designated slot corner backup. Our buddy Zach Mack was supposed to be that guy, but he also gets hurt. So now you're flying by the seat of your pants, and they tried several different people in there out of position to do so, and they failed miserably. So you can talk about flexibility. You want flexibility, but then you find out flexibility isn't as easy as you think it is. When a guy is asked to do something that he doesn't usually do, and then when he fails at it, you go, oh, shoot, didn't see that one come. Well, you should have. There's a reason why the skill set of a slot corner is significantly different than the skill set of an outside corner. And the Eagles tried to fudge it a little bit this past year, and they paid a big price. Here's where I'm going to disagree with you and BLG on the Eagles are going to take a tackle with the first round. I got no idea what Howie's going to do. We still got weeks to get there. They have, if you're taking a tackle, you have Lane Johnson and you have Jordan Mailata. Do you believe this is Lane Johnson's last year?
No, Lane spoke like he's got a couple more in him. So I think
I agree. And we believe that Jordan Mailata's got a lot of years left in him. So you're drafting a guy who's a tackle to be a first-round draft pick. And, oh, by the way, have a seat for 2 years because you ain't getting in. If Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata stay healthy, you're not playing. So the only way that you get this guy onto the field is if he's got positional flexibility and he can play both guard and tackle. But a lot of people, John McMullen included, tell me all the time, well, you got to have the long arms to play tackle. And if you have long arms, then that's disadvantageous in the guard position. The length of your arms somehow depicts whether you can be a guard or a tackle.
Hey, I didn't tell you that. I'm saying some scouts believe that.
Okay. You're quoting scouts. I thought you were signing off on it and agreeing with it.
No, I mean, you know,
overstated, then you and I are on the same page.
Remember, you know, if you can play, you can play. There is obviously they do these things for a reason. And, you know, they look at all the successful tackles and a lot of them do have longer arms because it makes it easier for them. So that's what they're working off of. But there's obviously always outliers as well. In the case of I mean, they've done this in the past numerous times. It's not like they drafted Lane Johnson to play right tackle only till he moved to left tackle when Jason Peters retired.
Right, but that was tackle. I'm talking about tackle guard.
You don't have to go very far. Well, not center guard. They drafted Cam Jurgens to be the center, but he had to play guard because to get on the field, they wanted him on the field. There are exceptions. Andre Dillard couldn't do it, but you know, hindsight says Tennessee cut him. Andre can't play. You know, it has more to do. I don't think it's tackle guard as much as he didn't have the wherewithal to play in the league. There are a bunch of guys who played guard and have guard tackle versatility. All the backups do, basically. Jack Driscoll.
Right,
you know.
but aren't you drafting someone in the first round to be more than a backup?
Yeah. But well, the point is, as Brandon just said, you know, you probably want to start him at right guard and then kick outside when the time comes, if you're taking a guy in the first round.
So that would be my question for you. Who are those guys who started at guard and moved out to tackle that were highly thought of, that were first-round draft picks, that you just didn't have space for them at tackle right away? You eventually want to move them out to tackle, but you started them at guard, went from guard to tackle.
Oh, I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, I'm sure there's players who've done it around the NFL, not here in Philadelphia. If you give me some time, I'll come on. Okay. I'm sure it's happened.
I would say very infrequently. That's just my recollection.
There's a lot. Again, when you're talking about backups, because generally some teams only dress 7 on a game day. Some teams dress 8, but you never go above 8. You know, you generally have an interior backup, center, guard. Matt Hennessy, the Eagles signed him. He can play center. He can play left guard, right guard. Generally, the tackles, the outside, the swing tackle, have guard tackle versatility, and they can play guard or tackle. Jack Driscoll, right guard, left tackle, right tackle. It's not rare to move between right guard. It's not right guard, right tackle, left guard, left tackle. It's not rare. It's usually backups because starters start. That's what they do. You don't move Lane Johnson. You don't move Jordan Mailata. You don't move Landon Dickerson. Landon himself, I should have mentioned, tremendous versatility. But now he's a left guard. Bob Groats again. He's a left guard now because he's so good at it. But the backups, they always got to move. So versatility is not a rare thing in the offensive line. In fact, it's preached. Now, you talk about it as a whole because you brought up Cooper DeJean. You know, he's got corner safety versatility, according to all the scouts. I think the Eagles want a more outside corner player than a versatile guy who can move all around. So that's why I think he wouldn't be in the mix at 22.
Yeah, see, I'll disagree with you there. What I think the Eagles would like more than anything else is slot corner, outside corner versatility. And off the season that they just had, that seems to me like to be a bit of a pipe dream. Because right now, they don't have – who is the Eagles' starting slot corner, John?
Right now, it would be, you know, whoever's going to – Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, Isaiah Rodgers isn't on the team.
He's
under contract, but he's not on the team.
Yeah.
So we take Isaiah Rodgers and put him off to the side. Who's the Eagles slot corner right now? Starting slot corner.
Probably Tyler Hall. But again, it's March 25th. You know, I do expect Isaiah Rodgers. I can't give you the date, but I do expect, unless he does something stupid, I do expect him to be available. So they're going to, who knows? They might even bring Avonte Madden. Nobody's signing Avonte Maddox. Maybe they bring him back at a veteran minimum deal. Who knows? There's very few. You talk about guard tackle is much more frequent than slot outside corner. Very few. I remember we were talking about that last year. The only guy I could come up with is Murphy from Arizona, Byron Murphy, who would play inside and then move outside. And he's not great. He's okay. But he's not, you know, that's rare. Guys, slot outside corner. Slot safety is not as rare. You saw it with Avonte here all the time. You see it with CJ. That's not rare. Gannon used to call it mirrored position. Slot outside, you know, maybe back in the 70s, 80s, but not now.
Back and then the 70s and the 80s, they didn't put 3 wide receivers. There was no such thing as a slot corner. It was halfback, fullback, tight end, 2 wide receivers.
Well, there was. There were times when you would put, but you're right. I mean, it's not as frequent. Now everybody plays 11 personnel. Now a slot corner is a starter.
Yeah, exactly.
And the third linebacker isn't a starter.
Correct.
So you're right. It's more, but very rarely do you have that outside inside versatility at corner, and defense as a whole. I mean, there's this whole notion of positionalist player on the back end, hybrid. You see hybrid linebackers, hybrid safeties. Josh Metellus, one of my favorite players in the NFL, played all 12 positions last year. All 12 positions. Malcolm Jenkins here is the closest thing to Philadelphia. Played 7 different positions when Jim Schwartz was here. I love those kinds of players. I always bring up Minka Fitzpatrick because the Dolphins wanted to make him Malcolm Jenkins at the time. They used that term as a guy who would move around and be their sort of chess piece on, and he didn't want to do it. And that's one of the reasons he got traded. He didn't want that kind of responsibility. So it takes a very unique player to be willing to do all those different things. Part of the reasons why I like them. I love Malcolm. I love Josh Metellus because they're willing to take on that. And it's rare. But, yeah, you don't see a lot of slot outside corners. And it's, yeah, I don't see anybody finding that in the draft. I'll say that.
That's one of the reasons why I was hoping that the Eagles were going to involve in Minka Fitzpatrick. But again, got to give up a first. How he never gives up a first-round draft pick or anything. You could have done it for Minka Fitzpatrick, and he's been phenomenal for the Steelers, and he could have been phenomenal here. I've been a huge fan of his for absolutely forever. And I'll give you one guy who fits the and I'm projecting and predicting, and Eagle fans will love to hear this, the take him as a tackle, but then start his career at guard because you've got your 2 tackles and just wait for it to develop. and I think it's going to be a major failure this year, is Tyler Smith down in Dallas. He was first-round draft pick, played tackle in college. They
Yeah.
brought him in and said, yeah, let's throw him in at guard because we're okay at tackle. And he was good at guard. He didn't make any Pro Bowls. He didn't wow anybody. He held down his job. But now they're moving him back out to tackle and going to give him his first chance to tackle. I think it's going to be abject failure for the Cowboys. I think that's the best way to screw up a first-round draft pick. Play him at guard while you wait for your outstanding tackle to get to the point of retirement or you can't play him anymore. I'm telling you, that's why I don't think the Eagles are taking a tackle, because they're going to take a tackle and they're going to say, we're going to play him at guard. He's going to come in. He's going to be as good as Tyler Steen. They're going to say, you're a first-round draft pick. You play. And then they're going to wait 2 years to try and move him out to tackle. And I'm telling you, I think it'll be a mistake if they go that way.
Well, it might be, it might be a situation where the Eagles have gotten with, the original plans, as we said, and, they didn't move off. When Lane started playing so well at right tackle, they stopped talking about left tackle. And when Landon Dickerson started playing so well at left guard, they stopped talking about center with him. It could be that type of situation, or he could bail. Sam Cosmi, I just looked up off the Joel Bitonio has done it. Very good player, Joel. Larry Allen did it back in the day. Forgot about that. One of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. So it's been done. It's guard tackle versatility.
Which of the tackles that could be sitting there at 22 for the Eagles is going to be Larry Allen?
I didn't say that. I just said what I also brought up Sam Cosmi and Joel Bitonio. Your hope would be Joel's a really good player. Larry's a Hall of Famer. Larry's probably top 5 offensive linemen of all time. But it's not rare. It's not rare. It's usually harder to go from guard tackle than it is tackle guard, because tackle's tougher position.
Correct.
But it's not.
And that's what the Eagles would be looking at this year if they used a first-round draft pick on a guy, 22, and you just want him sitting on the bench, taking up space for the first or second year of his existence. That first-round draft pick status starts to wane.
Well, in theory, though, no, you're taking a tackle to go to guard and then go back to tackle.
Right.
To tackle to guard is easier than guard to tackle. So in theory, if you have a big time tackle, in theory, it should be easier for them. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, but guys have done it. It's not all that rare. Certain positions, it's rare. I would say it's far rarer to see a slot and an outside corner than it is to see guard tackle or center guard. But yeah, I mean, hey, the Eagles value the offensive line. So they're about getting good players, and they'll figure it out on the offensive line. And, people shouldn't dismiss Tyler Steen. I'm not trying to say if they're going to get a cornerback. I would tell you they'd rather have a cornerback. I've said from the start, looking at the top of the draft this year, there's going to be more at 22. There's going to be more tackle options than cornerback options from a valuation standpoint, because there's more good tackles than good corners. But that doesn't mean Howie always targets players and moves up. He did it with Devontae Smith. He did it with Jordan Davis. He did it with Jalen Carter. If he sees Quinyon Mitchell, that's a player I think they would want. They're not going to get him at 22. If he can get up to get him, he might go up and get him. That's been his history.
Right. I think here's where we will agree. I think eventually Eagles are going to end up taking a corner. You think they're going to take an offensive lineman. Here's where I'll agree with your line of thinking here. If they do move up, they're more likely to move up. And it could just be a couple of slots. Then I don't think they're getting into the top 10 to take a corner or an offensive lineman. Whatever the move is going to be, however many slots they need to move up or whatever the cost is, more likely they would do so for a cornerback than they would for a offensive lineman. I think they would more likely sit at 22, and whichever one is still on the board. Now, there may be 4 offensive linemen gone by the time they get to 22, which means
there'll be a bunch.
fifth one is damn close to the fourth one, so we're not going to give up something just to get a slightly better player. So I'll agree with you there. If they do trade up, and Howie has done it, like you said, 3 years in a row, more likely for a corner than a offensive lineman because of the value of the players that seem to be on the board as of right now. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald, the Mac and Mac guys. I see that Mark Farzetta is in the green room, and he's ready to rejoin JAKIB YouTube channel. We don't have a problem punching up Farzy because we'll go Eagles specific. I'm sure he's talking about the Phillies and opening day and everything else on the planet this morning. No. We're going to make him talk about the Eagles. Mark Farzetta is next with us here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got Birds 365, a Meeting Monday episode here with John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We got Mark Farzetta joining us. Good to see you, Farz.
Good to see you guys.
How's everything going with you these days?
Oh, fantastic, my friend. Fantastic. How about you guys?
I love it. I love the energy.
I ask Farz almost every time he comes on. And one day I'm just hoping he goes, yeah, life sucks, John. He never says it. He's always got
that's my
on. I'm waiting for that day, McMullen. Is ever going to get that from Farzy? You know,
no, you're never going to get that from Farzy.
My dog died yesterday, so don't ask me.
You're never going to get that. Here, you're going to get it. I'm going to get it. My dog's not doing well. I don't want to hear that.
Oh, sorry about that, Jay.
I know.
Sorry to hear that, brother. Sorry to. No, I am at my fullest when I have when I obviously sports and all that stuff and all that fun stuff. But I also, if I have like if I have like a woodworking project, because I enjoy the woodworking world and all that stuff, I'm building a floating shelf to go under my TV. So I'm occupying most of my brain. That's
whoa,
not
whoa,
occupied by
floating
sports.
shelf.
I'm out, Bob Vila.
Yeah.
What the hell's a
I'm
floating
impressed.
shelf?
It's a
I
trend.
don't know what it is, but I'm impressed.
It's a trend. It just it's magnetic and it just float. No, I'm kidding. It basically you mount it to the wall like you would a TV, and there's no like supporting system around it. It's inside the shelf, and it looks like it's floating. It's a nice little feature.
Wow.
Helps open up the room. Right now, I feel bad since we moved in this house. We haven't gotten like a nice like entertainment center thing, whatever. I'm talking way too much about this, but anyway, we have my grandparents from like the 1950s. We have a radio and a Zenith radio and record player combined as like our sound bar is on that, ironically enough. I think it's very similar to when you have a non-working TV on top of a working TV or vice versa. So that's
a classic.
Yeah, exactly.
1990s setup.
The old TV's on the bottom, but the new TV is on top. Ignore the screen at the bottom. But that's what I'm doing in whatever free time I'm able to scrounge together. But yeah, so I am complete.
I still can't get by floating shelf. I see stuff.
Here. That's what
I had to get.
I went off the reservation at that point. I had no idea what chicken pies he was talking about.
So anyway, Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Kool-Aid. Let's do the Kool-Aid thing. Be careful, but if you go Kool-Aid, it could break your floating shelf because he's going to come through that wall and it's all over. There goes.
Wait,
wow.
Floating shelf.
This is now we're officially off the rails. This is amazing.
All right, since we're talking cornerback, because this is I'm going to put you all in the bad mood. Because that's me. You can't do it with Mark, but I'm going to try. I'm going to give you the negativity. All right. So I got a Twitter person. So Jody and I were talking about cornerbacks. I said Cooper DeJean doesn't seem like an Eagles fit to me. More of a versatile, can play corner safety. Every year with these people. Oh, he can play outside and he can play safety in this defense. They need both. They're going to have a rookie in a big Fangio defense play outside and then move to the safety and toggle back and forth. What fantasy world do these people live in, Mark Parzetta? This is the kind of stuff people talk about in March.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley. We're going to weaponize him. We're going to put him in the slot. We're going to play him outside. We're going to take him. Never happens. Never happens. You could point to me a Vic Fangio player, a Jonathan Gannon player, a Sean Desai player, anybody who runs the scheme in the NFL that plays outside corner and safety and toggles back and forth. Give me one. Give me one.
So I can't because that is not a real
He doesn't
thing.
exist.
Yeah, that's a unicorn. That's a unicorn eating a bowl of ice cream. Like that's not you're not going to say it. For me, friend, those people are even more optimistic and Polly pom-poms than I can be on my most optimistic and Polly pom-pom day. So that's not a thing. I wish it was, but I will say this much. Those things are not happening, but I never expected the Eagles to pay a running back, and they did with Saquon Barkley. And I didn't expect them to at least take a flyer on a linebacker that has had some good years in the NFL like they have in Devin White. So if you're looking at oddities this year, I think those are the closest things you're going to get to anything as odd as the Eagles getting that versatile player. And they did get a versatile player in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and C.D. Deuce. I like what they brought to the table there, but I just don't think that you're going to have that type of player with that type of regularity bouncing back and forth between the two positions.
All right, and I'll keep the negativity going, trying to topple Farzi if we can. I'm a fan of CBSSports.com. Always a big fan of Jeff Kerr, even though he said, I actually got to work today, guys. I can't come on your show as a guest because my job that actually pays me needs me to do something at the owners meeting. So no Kerr today, but I still love him. A couple other guys at CBS I love too because A, they're very good, and B, they're willing to come on my CBS Sports radio show because whole CBS tie there. One of the guys who's been on my radio show and here with us on Birds 365 is Jared Dubin, very good NFL writer. He penned a column, I think, over the weekend. 21 value / bargain free agent signings around the league. 21 of them. None of which were Howie Roseman signings. He took an 0 for 21 of the best signings for value and or bargain free agent signings. What kind of grade you got on Howie so far this offseason? And from our stream, from my calls on WIP, from my Twitter, Howie's a genius. Howie's the number one general manager. Howie's the greatest. That's why Howie's front and center in the picture.
Front and center, baby, on the
for all other
last picture.
Howie so far this year in the offseason.
All right. So usually when this question gets asked, we're just talking about players. The players aspect of it, I give them a B+. To me, you look, you already had a pretty stout offense in terms of the weapons that you had here. I don't see Jalen Hurts having another down year in terms of the turnovers that he had this year. And you added Saquon Barkley to that mix. So I think he's done a pretty great job offensively entirely over the last couple of seasons, really wowing us with his Howie Roseman move.
I'm talking about, boom, season ended, Tampa Bay kicked their ass as the collapse completely ended.
Yeah.
From that day forward, great Howie Roseman, not the last couple of years.
Right. So on that note, this offseason, B+, all around B+. But what you have to keep in mind, which is what I think bumps them up to an A, is the coordinators. The two biggest question marks that you had going into last season was, what is Sean Desai going to do? Is Brian Johnson ready to call plays? And no, more or less to those answers, especially as the season came to an end. This year, if you include the coordinators, I am wowed by what Howie Roseman and, yes, Jeffrey Lurie has done in the offseason with the coordinator hires. Defensively speaking, you talk about bringing back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which was definitely a need that the Eagles had, and I believe they have addressed that. Linebackers, I'll say this. You look at the could-be's. When I talk to our friend Bill Colarulo, he likes talking about, it's another season or off-season on defense of could-be's. He could be this, he could be that. With Devin White, I say he at least has been where he has been good. Can he be good again? Well, then you shift back to he could be, but the Eagles aren't going to, invest a lot into that position for the people that really want to be optimistic and hope that the Eagles see the light when it comes to the linebacker position. They're crossing their fingers for Edgerrin Cooper. They're really crossing their fingers for not the axe, but the hatchet in Trot Jr. It's just not a position that the Eagles look at. But Bryce Huff, for me, I saw it was put out already today with Robert Saleh addressing the media at the owners' meetings, talking about how Bryce Huff is a closer. And then people rip him for only going after they only go after the quarterback. He's only a pass rusher. Well, Mariano Rivera only pitched the 9th inning, and he was still pretty good. He's a guy that goes after guys that can close games for you. Hey, look, if you're mentioning Bryce Huff in Mariano Rivera, that's the most optimistic thing you could possibly say.
That is optimistic.
But
and I love that.
Let's be real.
And that's way too optimistic.
Okay. All right. That's true. Here's my thing with Bryce Huff. I have hope. Anyone who wants the Eagles to win games, you have hope for Bryce Huff. Okay, $51.1 million for a guy who's had one double-digit sack season and a guy that's had 4 straight double-digit sack seasons. Granted, 29 be 30 when the season really, they'll be 29 when the season starts, and then 30 shortly thereafter in Hassan Reddick. But a guy who has the proven track record, a guy who can be aggressive in his own right and win those one-on-one battles in multiple down situations. I think a proven commodity. Bryce Huff has just gotten this huge promotion that we have no idea whether or not he is ready for that promotion. And the Eagles, certainly with the money, are saying, "Oh, this guy's absolutely ready." But can he be in every? Listen to this. You look at a guy like Brandon Graham. Granted, different stages in their career, but played 41% of the snaps. And you have a guy like Bryce Huff who played 39, 40% of the snaps. Now he's going to be kicked up to 70. What are we going to be expecting here from Bryce Huff? What's a realistic expectation? So I have a lot of questions about the Bryce Huff signing.
Mark, I mean, you gave Howie a B+. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to find a young player who has more and is ascending and become a better player than what he was. They already have a great closer, as you mentioned, Hassan Reddick. Are they going to have him, though? And that's
right.
The big problem. Can you pay 3 different edge rushers over $10 million? In the case of Hassan Reddick, it'll be $20 million, most likely, or certainly near it. I don't know if you can do that. So that's sort of the science of roster building. You get a little bit younger, a little bit cheaper, and a longer shelf life. If you can pull it off, then you get a B+. Until then, I got you at a B-.
All right, well, put it like this. The last one I'll mention is Matt Hennessy, because that, to me, that is I
like that signing.
I think it's a great signing, and the reason is, where were your questions? But before Saquon Barkley, where were your question marks on offense? Like, you weren't sure about whether or not they were going to bring back DeAndre Swift, but if they did, you knew he was going to be at least good. I mean, we looked at how they shared the ball last year with two other 1,000-yard receivers, 1,000-yard running back. That's great. But Matt Hennessy, when you talk about the question marks, it was, all right, people are confident that Cam Jurgens can take over and play well for Jason Kelce. Is he going to be Jason Kelce immediately? No. But Tyler Steen at right guard, still question marks. So bringing in Matt Hennessy gives you so much more flexibility just by making that one very much under the radar signing. Because if Tyler Steen can't cut it, then you have a guy that can play right guard. If Cam Jurgens isn't really getting it at the center position, which I fully expect him to do, but then you could keep him at right guard. Hennessy could play center. You could also have Hennessy play left guard and possibly move in the longest of long shots, Landon Dickerson to center if you wanted to do that.
Yeah,
but again, that's far down the list. But I'm saying the one signing of Matt Hennessy gives you so much flexibility on the interior of that offensive line that it really does help answer that the biggest question mark on the offense, which was who was going to be your right guard, and if it was going to be Tyler Steen, was he ready to play that position?
Yeah, I hate to do this. I'm going to do it, even though
Shocker, we got some Temple love from Mark Barzetta, by the way.
Not that. Hey, maybe a little bit to do with it, but anyway.
Here's a question for both you guys. Number one, have we gotten any details on the Hennessy signing, other than it's a 1 year make good deal?
1 year, 1.75 million.
1.75 million. So Farzetta's talking about him stepping in and starting for the Eagles potentially at right guard or right center. If he was that good a player, there's not a team out there that would go I'll go $2 million. If Howie only go 1.1, I'll go $2 million. If he's of that level, if he's that good, if he's that worthy a gamble with all the injury history that he has, wouldn't a team have gone to $2 million? Aren't there teams out there with bigger needs and issues? Even I know Jason Kelce walking away. How can that be a bigger hole? Well, they did a good job of being ready for it by having Jurgens to step in. I know it's not fair, and guys overachieve with contracts all the time, but do you read into it that they got him for basically the veteran minimum? Is this guy really good enough to start for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, here's what I know. Going into, let's say, after Barkley and all that stuff, I looked at the interior offensive line of the Eagles, and I said, okay, well, your question marks on offense, really your only question marks on offense are at the center spot, and I'll put a small question mark there with Cam Jurgens, only because we haven't seen him do it at that position, right? And we haven't seen him read the defenses, help shift coverage and all that stuff, and be in communication with Jalen Hurts the way he's going to have to be in the upcoming season. So a small question mark. But Tyler Steen was a big question mark there. A tackle throughout his entire college career, coming here now to be a starting right guard. You at least needed some flexibility, some depth there. And if Howie has made any sort of a name for himself outside of trades, it has certainly been being able to know who to pay and how to pay him and what they could possibly bring to the table here. Hennessy's not a Hall of Famer. He's not going to be, I just said something negative about a Temple guy. But look, he's just a good depth piece that could end up being.
Famer,
no, if you're starting, you're not a depth piece, John. Farzi.
No, but I understand that.
You're
but
talking about him potentially starting for the Eagles. That's not
absolutely.
A depth piece.
Well, it is if Tyler Steen sucks, which is possible.
Well, to me, with Hennessy, I like Hennessy. It's a roll of the dice. The questions are not can he play? He's already proven he can play. The question is, can he stay healthy? He's had back-to-back knee injuries. Hasn't played in a year and a half. That's the reason for his contract. He was one of the top 10 starting centers in the NFL with Atlanta, and then they moved him to left guard, and he was the starter there, and he was supposed to start last year, and he injured his knee again. So the questions on him, and they're legit, is he going to be healthy? But he can play. He's already proven he can play in the NFL. And that's why I like the signing. I think it's worthy of $2 million, a little bit less than $2 million. You roll the dice and say, can this guy stay healthy? If he can, we got a hell of an interior backup at the bare minimum who can play any interior position and be a nice fallback, as Mark said. If Tyler Steen can't play, if you don't draft an offensive lineman, I think it's a smart signing, but I'm also not going to tell you it's a guaranteed signing. He hasn't played in a year and a half. I mean, that's the reason.
Did you need optionality at the right guard position? You absolutely did. And I think Hennessy provides that.
Yeah.
We shall see. All right, Mark, I want to jump over to the defensive side with you. This is hypothetical. You know, I love my hypothetical questions. There isn't a trade out there for Son Reddick. We get up to the draft. They continue to try. Either Howie isn't going to accept the pittance that some other team is going to give you. Then the draft's going to take place, and it's all over because people are going to draft edge players and go, wait a minute, we got to pay Son Reddick, plus we got to give something up in the future draft. No, thanks. We'll go with our young guy. So then they don't have any other moves other than keep him or cut him. If you keep him and you don't offer him any more money, which I would say would be well advised not to do. If you're talking about the wellness of the organization, to give him an extension and or give him more guaranteed money and kick it down the road to make more space. You don't need space. They're done. If they're not signing Justin Simmons, there isn't a free agent out there that you say, ooh, we got to clear some space, and $21 million cap hit for a sign is just untenable. They're already there. The roster is what the roster is. You just got to sign your draft picks. How's it going to play in the locker room with Son Reddick on a 1-year deal? And he's got to come back. Now, you're only 12 months from free agent, not even 12 months aside. Free agency is in the offing, and he'll be motivated to play well on the field. But I don't think he's going to be a happy camper in the room. How's that going to play if they try and keep Son Reddick? Because the only other option is to cut him. You don't save all that much. If you cut him, you don't save cap money. You're still looking at a $20 million rather than a $21 million cap hit. How's it going to play with Son Reddick if the draft comes and goes and he's still here?
Well, I'll say that if it's Son Reddick and you have, he's going to have trouble getting a word in edgewise now that you have Darius Slay and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back in there. So I don't know if it's going to have that much of an impact. But when it comes to just his overall mindset and mentality, yeah, then you want to go out there, you want to ball out, you want to make sure that you show every other team in the NFL that you still very much have it in you to be able to help them and get that new deal that you want with more guaranteed money. When it comes to the rest of the players in that locker room, I think every player understands that Landon Dickerson just said it, and it was a perfect way to say it. Every team is on a 1-year deal because you never have the same team back-to-back years, and we all know the cliche there, but it's very true, and I think a lot of the players in the locker room would just be happy to have Son Reddick when it's already been threatened that he might not be here. If he is here after the draft and is here for the upcoming season, then I think players are just happy to have him there in the locker room. As far as the team goes, this to me is a problem in the NFL with contracts that I am still shocked hasn't been fixed. And this isn't a Son Reddick problem, it's not an Eagles problem, it's an NFL problem, it's an NFLPA problem. The fact that the players constantly have this feeling of outperforming a contract or wanting a new deal, but they take the guaranteed money, and then when that's gone, they want to be able to re-up for even more money. And I get that. Anybody would want that. But the fact that it hasn't been adjusted, changed, solved in a different way is wild to me. I mean, I remember going back to, you go further than this, but Sheldon Brown was a player that I got to know. I did a weekly show with him when he was going through his contract dispute, if you even want to call it that. He ended up getting traded to the Browns. But it was the same type of thing, outperforming a contract. TO, outperform a contract. This is the thing in the collective bargaining agreement that I don't understand how they haven't found a better way to solve this problem. Spread out the money, guaranteed contract as opposed to money. When players say, when somebody says he signed the deal, that's the deal. It's not so much the deal that's signed as much as it is the guaranteed money that's agreed to. Don't take that money then if you want it to be spread out from the beginning. And that's something that, for whatever reason, they just can't find an answer to this reoccurring problem.
I have the answer, Mark Barzetta.
Oh,
it has nothing to do with the NFL or
legalize
the
HGH.
Well, we can do that as well, but have agents stop lying about contracts of players. All contracts are basically 2-year contracts now, with the exception of
quarterbacks who get 3.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Yeah. So they're all 2-year contracts to begin with, but you got all these morons out there spinning. Oh, look, I got my guy 5 years, but no, you didn't. No, you didn't. But you lie, and everybody says that. And then when the guarantees money is up, yeah, they want to re-up because it's not really a 5-year contract. It was really a 2-year contract. Daniil Hunter is probably the best example of this. His agent, now he's a little bit older, 29, 30-ish. So he's on that cusp, just like Son Reddick. He got 2 years. What was it? 60 million, Jody? 59 million of it was guaranteed. 59 million.
60? Wow, I didn't think it was. I thought it was 59 overall.
I'm sorry. Was it 60 million? Was it 59 guaranteed, or was it 59 fully guaranteed?
It is fully guaranteed.
Okay.
If everybody just got together and said, you know what, we're not going to lie about these stupid things like you just said, fully guaranteed, partial guaranteed, injury guaranteed, because they want to recruit. They just want to recruit players. Look what I got so-and-so, instead of telling the truth. And then we see the contracts when they get filed with the NFLPA. Oh, it's not really that. It's this. That's how you fix it. Just tell the truth about the contracts and have them all be 2 years guaranteed, and then you re-up. The injury part of it in the NFL is so much greater than baseball and basketball. You can't sign a guy to 8 years fully guaranteed.
Right.
You can't.
Of course not. Yeah.
So there's got to be a middle ground, and that's shorter contracts that are fully guaranteed. But nobody's willing to do it.
John, that is an outstanding suggestion, and I think it has zero chance of happening. There is no way the agents are ever going to go, oh, okay, to make it more understandable, we'll just put the.
Well, I agree. I agree with that.
I'm telling you that bring HGHN, deer antler spray, all that fun stuff that is not allowed to have these players playing 20-game schedules.
All right, Mark Faretta, really cut and dry, easy question for you. Will Greer play a snap for the Philadelphia Eagles this year?
No, Will Greer will not. Will Greer he'll be the non-betting translator for Kellen Moore. He'll be like, hey, this is what you want to do. This is what you want to do. Yeah.
Not a bad idea, by the way, to get somebody else to place your bets.
Unless you're Shohei Ohtani.
He's here.
Oh, I just got a text from Mike Gill. Here's what he says to Faretta. You don't think that Will Greer's playing this year? The West Virginia guys stick together.
West Virginia. Yeah.
Good on him. I hope he has a nice camp. John had him as an NFL head coach at some point down the road.
I said he reminds me of Kevin O'Connell. I think Kevin O'Connell was a third-round pick. He was a third-round pick. You knew relatively early they couldn't play. And, Bill Belichick and people took interest, and Kevin O'Connell said, coaching's going to be your future. I think that's what Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier are doing with Will Greer. He keeps following them. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying, but, Jody took it that way. Yeah, I'm not predicting it. I think they're trying to.
There's certain things you just shouldn't put in the same sentence. Will Greer, future NFL head coach.
I think they're trying to help him
with a paragraph between before getting there.
I think
Mike Kafka's going to be a head coach.
I think they're trying to help him be an NFL coach. That's weird. That happens all the time with
head coach. There's a difference between being a coach. Who is the Eagles quarterback coach this past year, assistant quarterback coach. Why am I thinking his name is jumping from my head here? Who was
who you
the former Giant quarterback who they brought in?
Alex Tanney.
Alex Tanney, too. You never went head coach with him. And I think the Eagles were doing the same thing, trying to give him a chance.
You know what's going to happen.
Get him, and eventually he becomes head coach. Why didn't we think of Tanney as a potential head coach? But we think
I think he's on that track. I mean, he got a promotion, even though Eagles kind of scapegoated him.
Yeah, you know what? How'd that work out? He getting a check from Jeff on the 15th and 30th these days, or is he unemployed?
No, he's the passing game coordinator with Shane Steichen. He got a promotion.
Steichen scoop him up.
Steichen loves him. He's a passing game coordinator. That's a step away from being an OC. And if you're an OC, you're a step away from being a step away.
Right. And you never went. They're trying to groom him to become a head coach someday. You didn't. That's why I questioned you.
Well,
got this guy before he's still in uniform. He's going to be on the field this year. And you said they're trying to get him.
Boy, you really mistook what I said. They're trying to help in his future coaching career. Ultimately, anybody who becomes a coach in the NFL, especially if you're a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator, your ultimate goal is to be a head coach. I compared him to Kevin O'Connell because they were both third-round picks. They're both going to be out of the league at 6-7 years. And he became the youngest head coach. I'm saying that's a possibility. Anybody. Mark brought up Mike Kapka. Same thing. Mike Kapka couldn't play either, but everybody knew, hey, this guy's probably got a future as a coach. Is he going to be a head coach? I think he will eventually. Is that 100%? Of course not. Josh McCown played for 100 million years. I still think he's going to be a head coach, but he played forever. And that hurt him. Because, if you remember, Mark, Josh McCown, the Eagles wanted to make him a coach right off the field when they had him. But they wanted him to start, quality control, that type of thing. And Josh is like, I probably got a few more years in him. Turned out he was right. He kept playing. And he kept getting that paycheck. And then there was talk. He got interviewed to be a head coach. Who interviewed him? Was it Houston? It was Houston.
Yeah.
Right off the field. And people are like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, why can't you do that?
Yeah.
Right. He was coaching high school.
Yeah. He coached Drake May, by the way. Josh McCown.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
anyway. I have a fan theory. And this might be the most speculatory thing ever said on your program.
Okay.
So Eagles get bounced out in the first round of the playoffs again this year. Sirianni gets fired, but the offense looks great. Kellen Moore becomes the head coach. Will Gurr, offensive coordinator.
There
Boom!
you go.
That's why they brought him in.
Off the bat.
That's why they brought him in.
Now, Doug
yeah, I'd cover anything you wanted to wager on that.
He'll start at.
What do you need? 4, 5, 8 to 1. I give you whatever odds you need. That's not happening. It's 172 reasons why.
Now, maybe the third part doesn't happen, but Kellen Moore is the head coach. Is that the craziest thing in the world?
No.
Not crazy, but not a given either. It's not just
not
if Sirianni's fired, given.
In theory, it would be very hard. In theory, if Kellen Moore was in position to be a head coach after a great season, in theory, they had a great season. So why are you firing Nick Sirianni?
Because they did it in spite of him.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
Okay.
Oh, I agree.
You got to add one more codicil to that if that's the case. And then he has to fire Fangio. Because if the Eagles are bad enough that Sirianni gets fired, but the offense is good enough that Kellen Moore is going to be the new head coach, then the defense must suck, which means you got to fire Vic Fangio. And you're paying him all that money. Good luck with that one. That's why 12 to 1. I'll give you 12 to 1 odds that doesn't happen.
You can't fire. Well, first of all, you can't fire the Greek god of defense.
You have to. You have to in the scenario that he's laying out here. It's the only way it happens. The only way you get Sirianni fired, Moore promoted to head coach. Somebody had to do something wrong. And one of the two sides of the ball. If Moore was good enough on offense, Fangio must have had a god-awful defense. Has to be.
John McMullen, you just call him Greek?
Greek? No. Well, I said the other day, I said
I understand.
The Greek god of defense would not be able to do anything with that Eagles defense last year.
Is Sirianni talking this week? What's his deal? What's going on out there?
Tomorrow. Coaches,
tomorrow? All right,
tomorrow.
that's definitely happened. Good. I just need someone to ask him to clarify what he does. I need that question. Hey, one more chance. Just an opportunity here. What are you doing again?
Same things he's been doing. He's he's a CEO.
McManus forced to ask the same question again. That would not be right for him. He shouldn't have to do that. And oh, by the way, I only want one question answered. How's Quez? That's all I'm asking. That's all I need to know is how's Quez. We know how Mark Farzette is, Mr. Floating Table Council.
Wow, I'm so impressed by that.
Floating table.
I'm thinking about hiring you for a floating shelf.
What do you need? What do you need? Coming right up.
If I knew what it was, I'd tell you exactly. I still,
I'm making one long one to go below. We have a 65-inch TV, long shelf below, 88.5 inches, and then 2 floating shelves to go above it. So 4 in total. So yeah, I got to use a table saw for the first time the other day, man. That's a trip. That's a trip.
Right.
Or you can just go
put up your hands. You still got your thumbs?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great.
or you can just go and buy a big bookshelf. That'll be me. Yeah, I don't need Bob Viola's help. Always a pleasure, Farzetta. Thank you very much. We'll get you up again before the draft. Thanks for jumping in today.
Yeah, Jody, I'm going to hit you up. Talk some baseball later this week.
Done deal. Anytime
Right.
you need me, you got me.
Thank
We
you,
had
fella.
Mark Farzetta here with us on Birds 365. Today, we're going to come back and put a bow on the show. Stick around.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac guys here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, we're going to wrap on this note. Two-part question for you. You and I both think Howie Roseman's about a B- so far this offseason. Farzy, Mr. Optimist, up at B+. So we
B+.
picked off the
Temple.
picked off-
Matt Hennessy. Temple over.
All right, we'll see if Matt Hennessy, A, can win a job, and B, can stay healthy enough to actually stay in it. I'll reserve judgment on that one. But let's end on what I think is a positive note, or I'm hoping you'll go down a positive road. If you had the chance to throw the challenge flag on Brian Dable's statement yesterday that Danny Dimes is the starting quarterback of the New York Giants and will be the starting quarterback of the New York Giants come first week of the season, would you challenge it and say, yeah, I think that's BS? I'm throwing the challenge flag right here, right now. Would you challenge that Daniel Jones will be their opening day starter?
Yes, I would challenge that. I think the Giants and the Vikings will be battling to fail with J.J. McCarthy come draft night. I think two bad organizations making bad decisions, trying to out-bat each other. That's how I would describe it.
Are the Giants going to have to move up to take McCarthy? What are they?
I believe so.
I believe he's going 4. Minnesota's going to get the 4.
I think Minnesota wants to get up to 4 or 5. And if you want him, you got to get above
You know
somehow.
who that would benefit JG, your boy JG. If he could just move down from 4 to 6, you might lose the top.
Yeah, it would be obviously it would be.
You're guaranteed the second wide receiver in the draft. That's pretty damn good. And you can pick up extra draft capital by moving down 2 slots.
Yeah,
that'd be a great trade for Arizona.
Yeah, and ironically, they both have failed New York quarterbacks as backup plans, Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. So, yeah, I think JJ McCarthy is, and he's much more loved by NFL people than it seems like draft people. He is very highly regarded. I can't get over, Michigan playing the way they played if he was so good.
Right.
Now they won the national championship, but I can't, if you're that good, why are you scaling back the offense to the degree? And Jim Harbaugh was talking today and he spoke glowingly about him.
Of course he did.
Of course.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't he? But, you played the way you played. And if you have a quarterback that belongs in the top 5, you usually don't play that way.
Right. Proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Against Ohio State this year, they had to win the game, wanted to go to net, and they did. They ran the ball every single play in the second half of that game. McCarthy had 0 passing attempts in the second half of the game of your biggest game of the year. Come on.
Yeah, that's a red flag to me, Jeff.
You and me both. This is one that we agree on. Don't think McCarthy deserves to be the 4th pick in the 4th pick in the draft. Vikings and Giants moving up to get
4
there.
or 5. Because I think who's 5? Chargers?
Chargers are 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're susceptible to moving down as well. So I think Minnesota's trying to get up. And remember, Minnesota already made one trade to get a second first-round pick to try to bulk back up. So if the Giants are sitting there at 6 and they want them, they're probably going to be SOL, and they have to stick with Daniel Jones.
Unless they want to move up themselves and put something on a board to give the team a choice of dropping all the way down to Minnesota or getting something. Where they
it's much easier to go from 6 to 4 than 11 and 23, I believe they have to.
See,
4.
I'm looking at the other way. It's much easier to drop from 4 to 6 than it is 4 to 11.
Yeah. Well, that's
come down those 2 slots rather than.
By the way, can I say our buddy Brad Spielberger came out with his first mock draft? He's got the Eagles taken at 22.
Jared Verse,
Xavier Worthy, the next Quez Watkins. He can run.
No, that would unfortunately kill my question for Sirianni as to where forget about where the hell is Carmen Sandiego. Where the hell is Quez Watkins? I can't.
Cooper DeJean going 23, right behind Xavier Worthy.
Oh, if Cooper DeJean and any wide receiver not named Rome or Neighbors or Marvin Harrison is on the board, I'm taking Cooper DeJean. They have a much bigger need for a cornerback, and I think he's a better player than any of those other wide receivers. All right, we'll debate this that much more tomorrow. Be back here, McMullen and McDonald. Return to Birds 365. We'll see what who's speaking today. Howie today. Yes. Nick will be speaking while we're on the air tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get some tidbits. Instant reaction from him, but we'll be breaking down what Howie Roseman has to say tomorrow here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.